Welcome to the Ask Your Mentor podcast from Dementia Researcher and Alzheimer's Research UK, where mentees interview their mentors to hear about their careers, experiences, and to find out what makes them tick.
Hello, and welcome to the Ask Your Mentor podcast, where we delve into the captivating journeys of groundbreaking researchers and scientists who have left an indelible mark on their respective fields. I'm Dr Aisling McFall, a Postdoctoral Research Associate at the Centre for Translational Pharmacology at the University of Glasgow, working to gain a better understanding of a group of receptors called muscarinic acetylcholine receptors, which show promise as a therapeutic target for Alzheimer's disease. It's my pleasure to be hosting this week's show, chatting to my awesome mentor, Dr Julie Simpson, who is currently a senior lecturer at the University of Sheffield. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Aisling. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you very much.
Good.
Julie is a luminary in the field of dementia research and a mentor to many aspiring scientists. Her tireless efforts have paved the way for advancements in our understanding of dementia, particularly in the area of age-associated white matter pathology. Julie and I met around 6 months ago after being brought together through the awesome Alzheimer's Research UK mentoring programme, where I promise we were not matched on the basis that we both happen to be from Northern Ireland. This is a fantastic free scheme that recognises the importance of mentoring and providing strong support systems. Delivered as part of their new ECR programme, it pairs people working at all career stages and matches people according to their needs. And Julie has been a fantastic support to me over the past few months while I have had some important career decisions to make. However, before we dive into the remarkable career of our guest, let me share a bit about the purpose behind our show. Ask Your Mentor is designed to provide invaluable insights, tips, and wisdom from mentors. By delving into the experiences, challenges, and triumphs of these remarkable individuals, we hope to inspire and empower the next generation of researchers, scientists, and innovators. Because this is probably one of the most exciting times to be focused on Alzheimer's disease, and the more people who get involved, the quicker we make much-needed breakthroughs. So, Julie, you graduated from Sheffield in 1995 with a BSc in neuroscience. That seems like a good place to start. Did you know at that stage what you wanted to do with your life?
Honest answer, no. So 1995, my goodness, that seems so long ago. So I remember choosing to come to Sheffield to study neuroscience. So we're both from Northern Ireland, and I love being from there, and I love going back home. But equally, I wanted to go away to university and really experience it all. So I came to Sheffield and studied neuroscience, and that's just because I got really interested in the brain. And it was a fantastic course to do. So neuroanatomy, histology, neurophysiology, all aspects like that. But I had no idea what I wanted to do whenever I graduated. Probably in my final year doing my undergraduate research project, that's whenever I realised that I really enjoyed being in the lab and doing research. So I knew I wanted to do a career then, if I could possibly, that would involve lab-based research. But initially I didn't really think about doing a PhD. I was looking at a range of different careers. So from working in hospital labs, and I did see a couple of PhD positions, and I thought, oh, do you know, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to apply for those. So my undergraduate research project was actually in diabetic neuropathy. And there was a PhD on offer in Birmingham working in that field, and I applied for that and was offered it. And in the same week, which is typical if you're applying for PhDs, nothing comes of it, and then you have 2 interviews back to back and you get offered both. And the second was in Sheffield, and that was working in multiple sclerosis. And I was really kind of a bit torn between them both, but I had really good vibes at the Sheffield interview, and I thought I really liked the supervisor. And it sounded such an exciting project, working with human post-mortem tissue and doing histological characterization. So I decided that actually that's what I would do. I wanted to do a PhD and to do that research.
So you mentioned good vibes was one of the reasons you chose one project over the other. Have you found that you've tended to follow your gut in that way quite often throughout your career?
I'd say, yeah, when it comes to interviewing, whether I'm being interviewed or I'm interviewing students, quite often you know if this is somebody that you could work with. And that really has been one of the factors I consider for any position.
After the PhD then, can you take us through your CV from there?
In the final year of my PhD, I presented my research at an international conference, and I really would encourage anybody doing a PhD, if you have the opportunity, do go to those larger international conferences to present your research, and don't be afraid to go and to speak to those main people in the field and tell them to come across to your poster and talk to them and talk them through the research that you have done. So that's what I did. And one of the people that I kind of dragged across to my poster, I must have made a good impression because they offered me a postdoc position in their lab once I completed my PhD. So that was actually really good motivation for me then to get back into the lab, to write the thesis, have the viva, make the amendments. And then I headed off over to New York and worked in the lab out there. And that was, with hindsight, quite a brave decision to make, going for your first postdoc, going abroad. And it was certainly a bit of a shock because I went from a small lab in Sheffield to this very large, vibrant lab over in New York. And we're going back over 20 years ago now. And it was quite a different environment. And there was quite a lot of pressure, really, to get those results, to get the data. But it was a fantastic opportunity as well, working in this very international lab. And so I carried on the research in multiple sclerosis over there and really enjoyed it. And I'm sure you'll appreciate being from Northern Ireland. It was lovely to get to the care packages from my mum, who sent across bags of Tato crisps. So, and with lots of friends that would come across to visit as well. So I didn't get too homesick. But I'd say there was quite a bit of pressure for actually working in the lab and getting results. There was even a mattress there because it wasn't uncommon to kind of work through the night or at weekends and everything as well. So work-life balance has changed a little bit since then. But it was a great experience to actually go out there and to do that.
Please tell me you never had to use the mattress.
Oh, please, I planned my experiments much better than that. But it was there on occasions if you kind of needed it. But it was just a very intense working environment. But a lot of the people I was working with in the States, there was much quicker career progression. So you kind of almost like did this really intense research and then your career progressed quite quickly. But I knew that was not the lifestyle for me. And towards the end of that position, I found out I was pregnant, which was very exciting, but I kind of wanted to be in the same time zone as my family. So I decided to come back to Sheffield. So the research I'd been doing, I've been looking at the neuroinflammatory response in multiple sclerosis and how that may be contributing to lesion progression. And when I came back to Sheffield, the next postdoc position I got, then it was actually in a different neurological disorder. So now I was moving into motor neuron disease. So again, this was great for me because I was expanding on the actual techniques that I was using. And it was a good opportunity for me to, like I say, learn new experimental approaches and designs for how to investigate this disorder. And while I was at the University of Sheffield, finishing that second postdoc position then another became available within the neuropathology group. And this is going to be doing research into dementia and aging. So you might look and think, oh my goodness, you started off multiple sclerosis, then did motor neuron disease, and then moved into dementia. But during that time, it really gave me a good opportunity to actually look, and having worked in a variety of neurodegenerative diseases, then you start to recognise commonalities between them, and neuroinflammation is a key component of all these disorders. And so that became my kind of the main focus, and probably the one I was most interested in, particularly the white matter pathology, the white matter lesions in aging and their contribution to cognitive decline. And having worked in white matter in MS, it was just a real interest to me, and I felt like I could bring something to that position. So I postdoced then for many years, actually, probably 10 years in that field with the neuropathology group. And during that time, as a postdoc, you normally from one contract to the next, and you're kind of always thinking, oh, what am I going to be doing next? What's on the horizon? But kind of getting established as one of the senior postdocs in the neuropathology group, I was able to kind of take on additional roles within those posts as well. So I had opportunities to be supervising the postgrad MSc students when they were coming into the lab, the PhD students. So it's really starting to develop those supervisory skills, in addition to obviously doing the lab-based research. And I also took on some teaching responsibilities as well, and I found that I really enjoyed that. I loved that student contact and delivering lectures and doing the teaching and training. And so I got some teaching qualifications alongside doing those postdoc roles. So my career path is a little bit non-traditional in that I didn't go like PhD, postdoc, fellow, and then into a tenured position. I went from several postdocs and then was appointed the lecturer in translational neuropathology back in, I think it was 2016, she says. So that was great. So that kind of gave me the opportunity then it takes the pressure off a little. You've got a tenured position, so it's not starting a postdoc thinking, oh my goodness, what's going to come next? But then there's additional responsibilities that come alongside that. So now the teaching side really started to take off, and I developed and set up the MSc in translational neuropathology, really getting that established. And that took a lot of work and effort, but alongside that, then writing grants and, setting up that independent research group. So it was a bit of a juggling act, but it was a challenge, and one that I really enjoyed.
You said you moved to New York. So how did you find that move? So you've been in Sheffield for your undergraduate and then for your PhD. Had you sort of started to settle roots in Sheffield? Was it difficult to uproot yourself and move to New York?
It was a challenge, but it's one that I really wanted to do. I think I'd always wanted to live abroad and to work abroad. So that was good. And my partner was fortunate because he kind of works all over the world. And as long as we were near an airport, he kind of said we could go wherever there was a position available, one that I wanted to pursue. And the group that I went across to, they were absolutely fantastic for helping to sort out accommodation, all the practicalities of moving out there with visas and bank accounts and everything. And they were a really good group to work with. Like I say, it was very intense doing the research out there, but it was really good and rewarding. And when you working out in New York, you'll find that all of your friends want to come across for a long weekend to visit, which is great. So we used to give them a shopping list. It was like, can you bring HP sauce? Or can you bring some proper chocolate? So that was fun. So although I would have to like go back into the lab and do the research, we had lots of family and friends that were popping across all the time to visit. And so that was good.
So you're in quite a lucky position to have a partner who's able to just go wherever they need to go. For you, I think that is something that causes problems when people have developed relationships or started families. So when you went back to Sheffield, did you actively make the decision that you were going to stay in Sheffield, or did it just sort of happen that way that you ended up staying there for 10 years as a postdoc? And then lecturer, of course.
I think we decided when I found out I was expecting a daughter that we both wanted to be back in the UK. Like I say, I wanted to be in the same time zone as family, and to be part of that and have the family there to see her grow up. But we decided coming back to Sheffield because we knew it. And a lot of our friends who we'd gone through university with together, we'd all kind of scattered to the four corners. But actually, the majority of us have actually all come back to Sheffield. It's a nice city, especially one to bring a family up. And then when a daughter was born, we had the decision then. We decided that for us, the right thing to do, we wanted her to be settled and to, kind of go through school and everything in Sheffield. And very fortunate, we were able to do that. And I was able to get those postdoc positions within University of Sheffield and the neuropathology group. And they were immensely supportive as well. So that was really important and a great support for actually my career.
How did you find moving between quite a few different labs within the same university? Did you feel like it was very different each time, or was there quite a lot of overlap in terms of the people or the proximity of where you were going?
I think it was nice in some respects that I knew a lot of the faces and I knew the people that I was working with, and moving from the lab group studying motor neuron disease, we were still in the same department in the same building, and moving to the neuropathology group was really good. And I think that's really where I hit my stride, because I was back in my comfort zone of kind of working with the human post-mortem tissue. Throughout the other postdocs, I deliberately wanted to get additional skills. So I'd worked with human astrocytes, so cell culture, and learned a variety of different assays as well. So it was nice that I could bring that to the table to kind of to complement, to have those cell culture systems in addition to doing the human post-mortem tissue studies. But working with the same groups of people or seeing those same faces, it was actually quite nice, because often when you start in a new lab, then it's trying to get to know everybody while you're doing your research and trying to find where all the chemicals are and how do we go about ordering, or what's the process and protocol for this. And that was nice that was already known. So it wasn't such a big transition from that respect. That's kind of what worked for me.
I know exactly what you mean. When you go to start in a new lab and you feel completely useless because you don't know where they keep blue roll or gloves or something really, really simple, and you're having to try and find someone who knows the answer.
I think that's it. But I think whenever you're suddenly aware of these things, then when you've got a new starter coming in, actually, let me just spend a day with you and show you where all these very basic things are. You're going to need them on a regular basis, but you've no idea where to look for them initially. So it's almost nice having like that buddy system, if you can possibly, and pair up with somebody and just kind of think back to, right, when it was my first week, I didn't know where do people go for a coffee? What happens, what's that alarm that's going off, or different things. So it's almost nice to have a buddy there that you can just ask really those simple, obvious questions.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because you would hate this. I hate when students, for example, feel like they might be pestering me, and they come to ask me something, and they're all apologies for it. And it's like, no, it's fine. You can't ask these things. Totally normal.
Absolutely. And I think the more students that kind of come through the lab, then you kind of get into the routine, right? So actually in your first week, you've obviously got all your induction and different courses, things that you have to attend, but actually let's do the practicalities of it, of working in the lab as well, and getting you orientated.
So just going back to your different postdocs, you mentioned like skills like cell culture that you got from some in particular. So did you find that from each particular role that you took on, that you can kind of identify a particular skill that you think you took from that then shaped where you ended up?
That's the aim of what I was doing. So I would try with the postdoc positions to ensure that there was something that I would get out of it that would benefit my CV. So initially, at the beginning, because when you've just done a PhD or a first postdoc, you've got that expertise, but it's maybe a bit limited, and you might want to extend and expand on your skill set. So that was certainly one of my aims. And then the later postdocs, it was me kind of starting to bring more to the table, and to kind of develop those independent research ideas, and to see how to take everything forward. And again, the support that I had within the group was great to be able to do that. And as you become more established and more confident, you are kind of the person that people will go to in the lab, which is brilliant. But you can kind of look to take on those additional roles. So whether it's volunteering to be supervising, maybe in a more official capacity as well, any of the students that are coming through, but also if you stay within academia in the wider university environment, looking to see which committees then, if there are other interests that you want to develop, it's a good opportunity to do that. So for me, that would have been kind of got involved with Athena Swan and some EDI work as well. And I'm very passionate about mental health and well-being. So I kind of looked to get involved in roles within that, and kind of expand on kind of what I was doing, and as well, in addition, obviously the research was always the priority, but you do want to kind of contribute and expand on other areas of your CV.
Are those the kind of things then that you think were key to you getting that lectureship position? Did you have, had you had some success in like small grants, but then also these other things where you got involved within your institute? Do you think that they were the key drivers to you getting your position?
I think if you can try and make yourself indispensable, then hopefully they may look to creating a position, because they will want to retain you and what you do. So obviously I was developing research, and then apply for small grants and funding to be able to kind of have those projects which are running alongside your own main research grant. But for me, it was the teaching probably that I getting involved with that, and setting up the MSc course. And then I think that was probably one of the reasons that maybe the post was created. So within our department.
Did you decide then that you didn't want to apply for a fellowship, and that you wanted to decide to apply to be a lecturer instead?
No, I did apply for fellowships, but with no success. So And that's quite a challenging thing as well, because you know what you want to do. You want a career in research. You are kind of working towards establishing that independent research group, looking to develop within your role, kind of chasing that tenured position. And obviously you're writing fellowships alongside doing your main postdoc role. And then if you don't get the funding, it's really, really demoralising. And I suppose from that, it is a challenge. And for me, I kind of that you kind of reflect, is this the right career for me? And it's like, yes, it is. I definitely want to continue in this. But I look to then kind of branch out a bit and kind of say, take on other additional responsibilities.
During all of this, did you have really key mentors that were helping you along the way?
Throughout my career, I've had fantastic mentors, both formal ones and informal. So I think preparing for this kind of chat today, I've been reflecting on that and looking back. So when I was doing my PhD supervisor was really a great supervisor. And she has been so supportive, and we're still in contact now, over 20 years on. We'll still meet up for a drink and she'll still do some great mentoring. She's always fantastic at listening and being a really good sounding board for me. And she never kind of tells me what to do, but she just kind of listens and then will ask those questions that kind of make me think and kind of will guide me to the right answer for me. And she's been really inspirational and she's been great, like I say, throughout my career. And then at other stages, I've had formal mentors. So with applying for fellowships, obviously the mentoring there that's available is really superb, and it's been fantastic to see over the years how much that has developed as well. And then I've also been a mentor throughout, so either for the PhD students coming through, others within departments, and so it's been nice to actually wear both hats at different stages, but it is absolutely key, and it's been really important for me, and I would really strongly recommend it to anybody.
I think the importance of mentorship is so high. Sometimes it feels like in academia that you're, I don't know, like this little ship sailing on your own and you don't even know what direction to go in. So just having that other person that you can just run something by or see what they think about something, or even just to voice it out loud, can be so important.
Absolutely. I think it's having that protected time to actually do that internal reflection as well, because we can all be so busy and have constant demands on our time. So whenever you can meet with a mentor and actually spend that time thinking, right, what is it I want to do? What are my next steps? What are the questions, I need to really think about, and just to have somebody there that kind of listens, may offer advice, but just to actually engage in that conversation and to kind of help guide you through a muddle of thoughts can be really important.
Looking back on your career, is there anything that you wish you'd done differently? Like, is there any advice you'd give to your younger self to change anything?
If I was to go back and give myself some advice, I would say, don't take rejection so personally, because it can be hard if you're submitting an application, a grant for funding that gets rejected, or a paper that kind of gets rejected. You do take it personally, whereas really, if you can just detach a little bit and look at the feedback, so it may be critical, but it's actually in a really supportive way. And if you can take that on board, then that application will be better next time, then the paper will benefit from it as well. So yeah, my advice, because I used to get very demoralised and go, oh no, it's been rejected. But then, you kind of fast forward a bit when you've kind of calmed down and looked at the, responses and the feedback you've got, and you think, oh, actually, they're right. And now it's so improved, it's much better. And then it is something to be really proud of. So I think that would be my advice to my younger self.
I think that's maybe something that just comes with a bit more experience of actually getting that, because when you've just come out of a degree or a PhD, your pieces of work, if anybody was to criticize them, of course you would take that personally.
Yeah.
But a few grants down the line, you start to maybe realize that it's not you, it's just the systems that are in place in order to, only so much money in the pot and these kind of things. But I think that's definitely solid advice. Is there something else that you think you would have ended up doing if you weren't a scientist? Was there ever a other pipe dream in the works, or were you always sort of like down the scientist route?
From university, and like I say, particularly doing the lab classes and then doing that final year project, I was hooked on doing science in some shape or form, and particularly the research. But before that, then I'd actually wanted to be an interior designer. At one point, that's what I wanted to do. I'm not very good in the slightest, but that was something I kind of thought about, very abstract.
My abstract pipe dream is to be a pilot.
Brilliant.
I don't even know what you need to do to be a pilot, but I'm like, yeah, that's what I would do if I wasn't a scientist. So you were postdoc for, I've lost count how many years it was, 10 plus, let's say. Then lecturer for four years in Sheffield, and you've been a senior lecturer in Sheffield since 2020. It sounds like you're quite settled in Sheffield, but what do you think is going to come next for you in your career?
I think I want to keep doing what I'm doing while I'm enjoying it. And I would say that to anybody, no matter what they're doing, if it's the job that you really do enjoy, then you're just going to want to keep doing it. So, but never say never. But for now, I'm kind of, yes, I'm settled in Sheffield, and really enjoying it all. But there's obviously more science I want to do, more research and everything. And so I'll just keep plugging away.
So now we know a bit about your career. In the next part of the show, it's time to get some Speedy career and life tips. So these are quick fire questions. Are you ready?
I am indeed. Off we go.
So, what's one thing you wish someone had told you when you were at the career stage I am currently? So, end of first postdoc.
I think I'll go back to my advice earlier. I would say don't take rejection personally if it comes to submitting that paper or grant or fellowship application. Then just try and detach, step back a little bit, and actually look at the feedback that you've got. And if you can look at that, you will see, oh, actually, that's a really good point. That's a really great comment. And it honestly, it will help benefit the future application or the resubmission of your paper.
Next question. So collaboration and teamwork are crucial within the scientific community, of course. I read an article this week about being ghosted or ignored by collaborators, and it got me thinking. So what advice would you have for anyone whose collaborators or co-authors are slowing you down, not responding or taking too long?
So I've been very fortunate. The people I've collaborated with throughout my career, I've actually been really engaged and very enthusiastic. However, if I was in that situation, then I would say communication is key. Speak to them. There may be things which are happening, they may be working towards a grant deadline and be blinkered in writing that grant application, and so they're not responding to emails, or there may be something else happening in the lab or even personal life as well. So I would say communication, just reach out, see if there is an issue, a problem, or just remind them you're there, and kind of try and get them to re-engage.
I think the article had said something like 3 strikes and you're out sort of protocol. So if you've sent 3 emails and they're still not getting back to you, then it's done. So next question, how important is science communications? How do you deal with the nerves and prepare for public speaking?
Well, I mean, science communication is key in what we do. But I think as scientists, we are just so happy to just chat and talk to anybody about our research. I don't know a scientist that isn't really enthusiastic and engaged and really will want to talk the ear off you. So dealing with nerves and stuff, I kind of think, especially with doing the public speaking and public engagement, just think of it as a conversation. It's one that you're leading, but this is a conversation with people who are genuinely interested in what you're doing, and they want to find out about the research. And so any questions they ask, again, these genuine interest. And so I just say, try and think of it as a nice conversation that you're having with a really appreciative audience.
So you mentioned earlier that you have a daughter. So how do you balance the demands of your career with personal and family life? And do you have any tips for achieving work-life balance, demanding field like science?
The careers that we do, you know yourself, that hugely demanding on time. And I am a huge advocate of mental health and well-being of both research staff and the students as well. And maintaining that work-life balance is key. For me, I write lists. I have a list at work with my priorities for, things to focus my time on and to get done. And the same actually with my home life is, I've got my list there of different things that need to be done either for that week or the next week or whenever. But it is important. And with science, it's not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job, especially if you're maybe growing cells and you need to go into the lab at weekends, or you've got a grant application deadline coming up. It can eat into that family time. But where possible, you really do need to have that protected time. I mean, I absolutely adore my research. I love my career. I love what I do. But it's not everything. You just need to make sure you've got that good balance and that you do have the downtime and you do spend the quality time with your family as well.
I think like in research, things tend to go on peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
So as you know, I have a daughter too, and I try to take it so that when everything's in the peak, yes, okay, the work's getting done, but maybe when things slow down a little bit, it's all right for me to leave a little bit early so that we're getting those extra hours together. It's so important, as you say, to your job is not everything, and your personal life and your mental well-being are also incredibly important.
I think probably just going back to one of your earlier questions when you were saying what advice would I give my younger self, and it was actually to say no. It's absolutely fine whenever you've got people kind of asking you to do things and putting additional demands on your time. It's absolutely fine to say no, and to kind of say, well, no, I've got to prioritize this. There's only so many hours in the day, and I'm not able to do it at this time. So you can decline very politely and nicely. But certainly when I was starting off, anybody would ask me to do anything, I was yes, I'll do it. And then you might take on a bit too much and it can be a bit difficult. So my advice would be to say no, not to everything, but there are times when you just need to think, no, I can't take anything else on.
It's so hard to say no though, isn't it?
It is. But I think it's something I'm still working on it myself, but it is something that you just kind of need to be able to confidently do. And it's not that you're going out of your way to kind of upset them or anything. It's just, you've just got to recognise whenever you already have a lot of demands in your time already.
How and where do you find inspiration in your research?
I probably don't have to look too far for that. The students in the lab, they're just so motivated, enthusiastic, they are wonderful. And I would say also I'm involved in the kind of local research advisory group, who are just lay people who are affected by dementia, and going in and chatting to them about research I'm doing or a grant I'm planning to put in. Their feedback, and they're just really inspirational as well.
The scientific landscape is constantly evolving. How do you stay updated with the latest advancements and ensure that your knowledge and skills remain at the forefront of your field?
Personally, I carve off particular time. I actually block book it in my calendar that I can have an afternoon a week when I am kind of getting caught up in the literature, reading, and having that protected time. Because if I don't put it in my calendar, then people will book meetings or other things will creep in, or I'll think, oh, I'll just prepare this lecture or I'll just do something else. Whereas if you can actually have that protected time, then you can kind of really get to grips with the literature and actually enjoy reading all of that and keeping up to date.
That is solid advice. I am stealing that one. So how do you approach grant writing?
With my head in my hands. So my advice for grant writing is don't rush it. So, you know, if a deadline is looming and you've written the application and it's not where you want it to be, don't submit it just because the deadline, it will come round again. But also, I would say get a feedback from as many people as you can. I personally, I don't send it to the people who I know are supportive of the research I do, because I would actually look for that person who, if I'm giving a departmental seminar or a talk that's actually maybe critical or asking those more pertinent questions, that's the kind of person that I would want to read the grant application. Someone who I think, oh, actually, no, they really are going to be critical of it and give some genuine feedback that could help improve it.
And then this is the last question, you'd be glad to hear. Do you think it's important to move institutions or can you stay in one place? So quite appropriate question considering the time you spent at one university.
I think it's entirely down to the individual. So when I was starting out on my career over 20 years ago, it was very much expected that you moved around and worked in several different labs. And that can be a really good thing because you're starting to expand your network of connections and collaborators. You can develop different skills, and those are all positive, but that's not an option for everybody. So I think it's at least it's more widely recognised now that for some people, they're not in a position, they may have caring responsibilities and there may be other reasons why they're not able to maybe move around to different labs as well. And I think that has much less impact on career progression than it used to when I was starting my career. So I'd say it's entirely up to the individual as to whether they want to move around.
Yeah, I think even up until quite recently, it was quite expected to move around.
Yeah. But I think now people are looking at the whole scientist, you know, and everybody's got different demands on their life. It's like they may have different responsibilities as well, that they're just not in a position to be able to do that. So I think it's a positive thing that it's no longer quite the expectation it once was.
Yeah, precisely, because it's no mean feat to uproot yourself and move even, 2-3 hours down the road, never mind move to like across the Atlantic. So we've had some solid advice from Julie there in the quick fire questions. To try and take a few highlights for me, I think block booking some protected time in your calendar, I think that is fantastic advice and something that I'm going to be applying myself. We heard about the importance of communication in science, so that's both to engage the public with your research, but then also communication between your collaborators to drive your research forward. And some really solid advice on work-life balance. So we talked of the importance of maintaining that work-life balance and some key tactics, for example, lists or that block booking time in your calendar. And also, importantly, learning to say no. You don't have to say yes to everything. And then finally, I quite liked that Julie seems to get her inspiration from students in the lab. And that's one of that's a place where I get my inspiration too. I think it's great to see new students coming into the lab and how excited they are about what they're doing and those fresh ideas that they can bring to projects. We're now on to the last segment of the show. And before we finish, we just want to talk a little bit about mentoring. So Julie, why did you decide to be a mentor, and what advice would you have for anyone listening who doesn't have a mentor?
I decided to be a mentor because I've been really fortunate and I've had some great mentors throughout my career. I would also say actually that not all mentor-mentee partnerships do work. So again, and that can be no fault of either party. It's just sometimes there can be personality clashes. And if that's the case, I would suggest to anybody to kind of go back to whoever's organising that, and you can just get repaired and rematched. But mentoring is fantastic. I've benefited from it because it's given me that protected time to really think about my career, what I want to achieve, but also how I can go about that. And it's not always that straightforward route. Sometimes you kind of take a different avenue, but it's been really beneficial to me to be able to kind of explore the possibilities and for me to kind of develop the strategy as to how I might get there. And for anyone who doesn't have a mentor, you're missing out. And I would strongly recommend that you do engage in mentoring, and particularly with ARUK and the mentorship scheme that they're running. I think I've really enjoyed it, and I've kind of benefited from it, from being the mentor, and hopefully Aisling, you have as well, being the mentee.
Oh, 100%. The great thing about mentoring is that it's somebody who's so far removed from your day-to-day. So it's not the person who's your manager or anything like that. So it's somebody else that has absolutely no investment in what you're doing, that can just be a sounding board or mostly just help you think something through, not even necessarily give any advice, but just help you get there on your own.
Yeah.
And similarly, I've been a mentor myself, and I think you do get a lot from doing that as well. You can really develop how you just communicate with different people and different personality types and things like that. So I think we're both strongly encouraging anybody out there who doesn't have a mentor to find one. Do you think it's a good idea to have multiple mentors at the same time? So maybe supporting you in different ways?
Yeah, absolutely. Having different mentors for different aspects can be hugely beneficial. In the same way, it's highly unlikely you'll have the one mentor right the way through your career. You'll find that at different stages, different mentors can offer you different things and give it additional support. So, for example, for those people going for fellowships, it's really good to have a mentor, so a fellow that's just been recently appointed, because they've just been through the system and they can give you that more recent advice and the do's and don'ts, and kind of be supportive in that way. But like I say, for different stages of your career, having those different mentors can be beneficial. And say some of mine I'm still in contact with as well. So you develop different relationships with the mentors.
Yeah, I guess getting as many experiences, shared experiences from people is only going to be beneficial, especially when it comes to something like applying for a fellowship or a difficult thing such as that. So this is the last question, and it's a fun one. So if you could choose anyone from history, alive or dead, to be your mentor, who would you choose?
So I had a long think about this, and I think it would have to be somebody like Elizabeth Blackwell. So back in the 1800s, she was the one who went across to the States, and when she was there, she wanted to study medicine and become a doctor, but she got rejected from 29 universities before one accepted her. And I think to have her as a mentor is like someone who's gone through that much rejection, yet they still stayed motivated, passionate, and focused on the end goal. I think it'd be quite inspirational, and I think it'd be somebody like that I'd like to have as a mentor.
Wow, I think she would definitely make an amazing mentor.
Yeah.
Well, that is all we have time for today. I would like to thank my amazing mentor and guest, Dr. Julie Simpson. If you would like to find out more about Julie, you will find her bio on the Dementia Researcher website. Thank you again, Julie.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Well, the Ask Your Mentor podcast will be back soon with another mentee interviewing their mentor. But for now, I'm off to go and plan my career and block out some time in my diary for reading papers. I'm Dr Aisling McFall, and you've been listening to the Ask Your Mentor podcast from Dementia Researcher in association with Alzheimer's Research UK.